And hello, and welcome to AleksTabletops Sandbox MTG Study Session 72. My name is Alex, and let's continue studying Magic the Gathering. Today we'll continue study Unstable, or should I say, we kinda started with Unstable previously, and today we're continuing with Unstable. Yeah, let's just make some tweaks for camera, not to lag. Turning off and turning on and off red light. Okay, so today's session for the most part is going to be, I guess, studying, because we don't have that many quests in Magic Duels. One. A second one is going to be added after a couple of hours. I mean, after 3 hours, if we are going to be exact. So yeah. Kind of the thing is, I don't think that we will finish today with Unstable. Again, Unstable is going to be our last set before reworking our mind map. By the way, talking about mind map, I completely changed the program. As I already said before, I used Xmind as the main program for working with these mind maps. But because my like the free version of Xmind 8 were cluttered, I would say, with a lot of my mind maps in here. So basically, usually when I'm opening Xmind, I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or something like that, big groups of mind maps, and inside of each mind map there's going to be multiple tabs for each mind map, and it actually kind of overloads PC a lot. And there's a lot of like mind maps, and there's a lot of information, and because of that, at the beginning I chose the Xmind Zen, which at that time were a beta version, but right now it kind of updated to an actual version, and now it became not free, so basically it became a trial version, and you need to kind of buy it in order to use it, and basically I decided to switch back to, not like basically switch back, but for MTG Study necessarily I decided, okay, I definitely need to use a original Xmind, which is free, so which is awesome and pretty cool. A little bit different things in here in terms of like the visuals. Again, we have tops in here, we have the number of intellectual maps we can do. By the way, in this mind map like program, we actually have ability to do more than in Xmind Zen, because I don't know, basically this is like a little bit more professional version and a little bit more full version, I would say, and Zen it's a little bit more like version that could work on multiple devices. So either way, I don't think that this is super important. I'm just like stating the thing why we changed the visuals. So nothing necessarily changes. Everything kind of will stay the same when it comes to working with my map. We still like, the cool thing is, after they updated the last my map, the files for it now compatible with or regular my Xmind. So basically, if you I created this my map specifically in Xmind Zen version, and at the beginning there was a statement that they're not going to be compatible, but apparently they are, and which is super cool. So basically the only thing that I did is just opened this Xmind file in Xmind 8. By the way, there's an updated version. We're using Xmind 8 update 6. Before that I actually had update 3. I kind of didn't update it for a while. So either way, let's just continue. So previously, and again, as I said, like after we will finish studying mind maps, after we will finish studying on sets, we will definitely revisit all information that we gathered so far, and we'll try to kind of recreate or kind of create a better version of things that we're going to work with. Yeah, the cool thing about this 6-mind, we kind of have the ability to change the sizes of those things. So before that, they were kind of automatic, but now we actually able to make things a little bit more, I don't know, controlled. And this type of thing were present like from the beginning. Again, I didn't use it for Magic necessarily. Yeah, but again, we're going to use these things a little bit later, not now. I'm just like showing you what this thing is capable of. Yeah, so for the most part, we will continue with where we left off. And again, after we'll finish on sets, come on man, finish your thoughts. After we'll finish on sets, we're going to dive into a categorizations. So basically we will establish a little bit more better classifications for each. Like for instance, we will separate all regular abilities that Magic has, like these type of things. Maybe I will thought out something a little bit better. So basically there's going to be a lot of work after that, so we're not going to dive into necessarily next sets right away. I think we will work on these things first, on like better categorizations for them. And I don't know if I'm going to do that inside of the stream or outside of the stream. Again, I usually don't have time to do that outside of the streams, and I think are going to make this inside of the streams, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't want to like say things that might not happen. So yeah, we'll see. So yeah, the last card that we stopped with was a entirely normal armchair. And let's just see what this card was all about. Oh snap, we actually need to find it now. I actually went through almost half of the first page, as I remember properly. Because we kind of went super quick through all these cards, because again, there's a lot of similarities that we already established when it comes down to abilities. Because of that, we kind of still not clear about some things that involve contraptions. I still don't know what couple of elements of that involve contraption means. For instance, what means a crank, how it works on separating it on different piles. So it's kind of still unclear. We'll figure this out a little bit later. So yeah, let's just find the card that we stopped with and kind of continue. Crafty octopus. No, actually it's... Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, I vaguely remember things about previous session because I was super tired and I wanted to sleep, and my brain was kind of worked on automatic, so I'm not necessarily remembering everything that we went through. Every creature type. I definitely remember that we went through something like that. Yeah, with watermarks. Okay, let's just find... how this card looks. Okay, so this is an artifact, so let's just try to find this chair. Hopefully it's somewhere down. Yeah, here it is. So yeah, this is our last card that we stopped with. So this is artifact. During your turn, if this chair is in your hand, you may hide it on the battlefield. Yeah, I remember that one. So basically, the cool thing about this, it means that like we able to hide it on the battlefield. Like this is pretty interesting, like ability, especially if we're going to build something on our own, like create our own tabletop game. It's going to be pretty interesting to implement something like that. So the ability to hide cards at like on a battlefield somehow. So we could like create a specific cover places or something like that. So this is actually has a lot of potential. At least I'm seeing it, a lot of potential in it. So return entirely normal armchair to its owner's hand. Only any opponent may activate this ability, and only if he or she sees entirely normal armchair. So like you can hit this chair under your card, you can under your creature, and I guess if creature dies, this card becomes visible, or you can hide it under your artifact or somewhere in your graveyard, which means that usually players able to search through other players' graveyards, so which pretty easily to get established. But again, battlefield, graveyard, it's not necessarily the same. Again, battlefield is the area that you put cards in. Graveyard, it's kind of an area where cards are heading after they leave battlefield. So yeah, so again, this is specifically for Magic, but we could actually come up with something like, so basically you're able to hide this card somewhere in the playing area. Yeah, I guess something like that. Let's just do that. Again, there's a little bit of specification in here, like during your turn, if this one is in your hand, you may hide it on the battlefield. I think you should reveal it to a player, because that way I could hide whatever card I want. So it needs to be established for the opponent what card we're hiding, because come on, I could hide whatever I want. It's basically cheating. So, or whatever card I want. I mean, like, okay, during your turn, if entirely normal armchair is in your hand, you may hide it on the battlefield. So I'm not going to dive into these specifications. So, okay. If certain conditions are met, okay, let's just put it in here. You're able to hide let's just call it target card, which could be anything. In hand, on battlefield, I think it's fair if we will kinda make it as broad as possible. If certain conditions are met, you're able to hide target card. Okay, let's read it again. Normal share in your hand, you may hide it on the battlefield. Again, if certain conditions are met, in this particular instance during your turn, if this card in your hand, you may hide it on the battlefield. So in general explanation for it that we could use for whatever game we want, if certain conditions are met, you're able to hide target card. Somewhere again, we're not going to say battlefield because depending on the structure of play for different games, games could have only battlefields, not have any graveyards or whatever. So basically we're going to think about the whole playing area. So I'm going to establish somewhere in the playing area. And again, just to specify what target card is, it could be in your hand, it could be on the battlefield, it could be basically anywhere. And opponent's hands, let's just call it in hands, which kind of means in your hands, in opponent's hands. It could be on battlefields, it could be on graveyard, if it is one, of course. Yeah, that's kind of it. By the way, the cool thing about this Xmind, it's much more easier to save it. You just need to click the save button. Yeah, actually kind of relieved that now I'm using the one Xmind that I'm like started to use right from the beginning when I started to work with mind maps. By the way, the first mind map that I started to use, the first program that I started to use was not Xmind. First couple of years I used it, or maybe for the first year I used I forget how it's called actually. Free map, something like that. Yeah, something like that. But then I switched to Xmind because it was a little bit more, I don't know, contemporary, I'd say. So either way, in certain conditions, if certain conditions are met, you're able to hide target cards somewhere in the playing area. And we could basically, yeah, when it comes down to duplicating, it's a little bit different in here. We either will duplicate like that, or copy paste it by Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. So it could be a mechanic. Yeah, it could be a mechanic that involves interactions between, just involves interactions. So for instance, as we see right here, so for instance, opponent can rehide it or rehide it, I don't know, rehide. There's no word like that. Rehide. Let's call it right now, because again, I don't know what's the proper word for like rehide things, if we actually able to do so, like in English. I don't know if there's a word for that, but like I will put things the way that I understand them again for now. It could be a mechanic that involves interactions. For instance, opponent can rehide it, or move back where it came from. So basically this is actually potentially a pretty interesting ability that we could use, and we could even create a complete mechanic out of it, which is super cool. Again, it's kind of like the game of hide and seek, but just with cards. You try to hide your cards, opponent tries to search them on a battlefield. So we could actually involve different type of interactions, like we could make player to close his or her eyes, and basically we would hide that, and then player could like figure it out where it is. So again, it's basically super interesting thing, and we could do whatever we want with it. By interactions, again, like hide and seek, just like a specification, because it could work like hide and seek, which would be an interesting thing. yeah, so just duplicate things again and go to the next card. Okay, and again, sacrifice it, destroy target attacking creature. It's just a way to use this card on our own. So again, opponent could make this card disappear or go back into our hand, and this thing kind of utilizes the whole ability of this card. Of course, this card is not just going to be present on the battlefield for no sake. It needs to do something, and this is basically the action that card is like performs. If certain conditions are met, you're able to hide target cards somewhere in the playing area. Oh snap! And depending on where it is, it can do something. So for instance, if this card on a graveyard, we could bring back our cards from a graveyard by using this card. If this card, for instance, on the battlefield, we could, under our creatures, we could give our creatures some perks. If it's under an artifact or whatever, we could use it to destroy other artifacts. So something like that. So basically, it's actually super cool. Yeah, like it definitely has a lot of potential when it comes down to this thing. Yeah, we're kind of running out of space a little. No? Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah, by the way, when creating mind maps and working with a lot of text, sometimes you probably need to think about your own boundaries. So again, there's no boundaries how long this thing could be. We could create it as long as we want. But again, it needs to be manageable for us to kind of look at the whole picture. Right now I'm actually on 120 zoom, and the only purpose of 120 zoom is for you to see this text. Ideally, I would work with just 100, which is completely fine for me. But again, it's super small usually for just looking at it on a screen, especially when streaming, when its bitrate is pretty low and reconverting stuff and whatever. So for that purposes, I just make it a little bit bigger. But what I'm saying about is basically you don't want these things to go out of the visual thing. So ideally, the way that I'm trying to work with mind maps is I'm trying to limit this motion and create mind maps as such as they need to stay in the 60 by 16 by whatever it is. So basically with HD size. So the only thing that I need to do is just scroll down, and that's kind of it. This is the easiest way to deal with mind maps, because if you will create a mind map which is going to move in all sides, like it's going to be pretty big. Of course, it all depends on what type of mind map you're creating, and again, it's just like the preference, the personal preference. Like for me, I like when mind maps are when my mind maps are kind of vertical, because by making them horizontal, it's kind of a little bit harder to manage them. And if you create them in both sides, in horizontal and vertical at the same time, it's just basically hard to operate, because there's a lot of like pieces, and if you will create this type of mind map, it needs to be clear where things are and for you to pretty easily to find them. But again, in types of mind maps that I'm usually creating, and usually I'm creating mind maps with these type of elements, so I'm not creating a simple regular mind maps that most people are kind of creating. I'm creating mind maps like they look as notes, but instead of using notes, I'm putting things right away into some type of category, some type of like things. It's just much easier than use a notes and then like reread these notes, because notes are usually random. there's usually no specification for nodes, and then you need to kind of categorize them a little bit separately. And usually instead of using nodes, I would rather use mind maps because it's a little bit easier. That way I have flexibility right away to add things whatever I need at that time and whatever I feel like they should be in a particular place. For instance, if I will find something in Unstable that could work for our general abilities, of course I will go back and use it, add it to general abilities, and I have infinite place and space to do that. As if I worked with regular nodes, I didn't have that opportunity. I was forced to add them whatever, just next after previously established node. So yeah, continue. So where we are, we have about we have enough time to go through all of these things. Hopefully we will manage to cover a lot of cards. So continue. So move a counter from a permanent, by the way, I didn't finish. Depending on where it is, it can perform in-game action. Yeah, let's just establish that a little bit better. Good. Continue. So everything Gamma Jill? What? Okay, move a counter from one permanent into another. If the second permanent refers to any kind of counter, the moved counter becomes one of those counters. Otherwise, it becomes +1/+1 counter. +1/+1 counter on target creature and proliferate. Okay, we already established the ability of proliferate, and we already dealt with everything that kind of involves counters, especially you can do you can place whatever card you want. We're not necessarily established things with moving counters. We could actually try that and search. Hopefully there's a search in here. Yeah, find and replace. Find. Where is it exactly, by the way? Oh, count. Yeah, move target counter of any kind from one card to another. We already had that, so cool. Cool. Good. That means that we need to continue. Yeah, let's just close these things. We're not going to use them yet. Yeah, we're almost done with unsets, then we will go through casual sets, or no. First we will go with not casual sets. Actually, we need to cover... Yeah, we'll go with casual sets. So basically, casual sets are the casual supplements. So like Archenemy, Plane Chase, Conspiracy, Explorers of Excellence. So these type of things are considered casual things. Maybe we will add Commander to that. Yeah. We will probably add Commander there. Just because Commander is kind of separate from it, but I think we will add Commander there. So yeah, continue. So yeah, we already established things with counters, so we're not going to use that. Continue. So draw a card, activate this ability only if you have no cards in your hand. Again, certain conditions have to be met in order to utilize something. You gain gain 10 life in this particular instance. We didn't establish a card that could help you gain life yet, because maybe they're kind of clear. Let's just do that. So yeah, it's super clear, and the fact that we didn't establish it yet, it's pretty weird. So let's do that. Okay. Again, you constantly forgetting about adding things that's super clear, because almost every game has the ability to gain life or like deal some damage, and usually you're not establishing it as something like separate. But ideally, again, since this is a full study, I think every type of ability that I will encounter, I need to add into this mind map, basically. And then try to find a better categorization for it. So you have the ability to gain life. Again, it could work like whatever we want. Like it could be a card that could give us life. It could be certain conditions that could give us life. Again, these are all specifications, just the overall ability to gain life. Because not every game give us the ability to gain life, especially if we're not playing the game that involves some type of a life counter. For instance, if we're talking about Gwent, it doesn't have any life there. So for the most part, the only thing that's there is the numbers. So yeah. Okay. Oh, points, I should say. So also we could sacrifice this one, and you may put a silver bordered permanent card from your hand into a battlefield. Again, we already established this separate mechanic, or not necessarily a mechanic, that works with different type of cards, like cards visuals. So silver bordered cards, such as this, like black bordered cards, white bordered cards, etc. So basically, these type of abilities or mechanics, potential mechanics, could, not could, but actually they working with card appearance. And if the appearance of the card will change, kinda, it could give us something. Everything C. So, which is weird. So these two cards are the same, but they're not. Because this one B, this one C, what it means? Oh, it has a different number. So this one is 147. B. No, they all kind of the same, at least in visuals. But no, they actually give a completely different ability. So there's like, how many of those? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 cards that kind of doing the same thing. They look similar, like they look visually the same, but they do different things. Okay, this is interesting. Put also on counter and target visual periphery to get into the same, sacrifice it. Yeah, flip a coin. Again, everything that involves coin flipping we kind of already established. If we will encounter something new, we will add to the coin things. If you win the flip, add 2 mana to your mana pool. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast an instant. Target player discards a card. Activate this ability only during your turn. Becomes construct and third effect until end of the turn. Okay. Add 1 mana to your of any color to your mana pool. Say the flavor text. On a card in your hand, target opponent guesses that card's name. You may reveal that card. Yeah, we already established things that involves like guessing a flavor text, or basically the guessing game, like what card the other player has, depending on certain clues that we're going to give the opponent to figure out what this card is. Deals 12 damage to target creature. Okay, this is pretty fun. Sacrifice land, you gain 2 life. It's pretty weird. Why we have 6 iterations of this card and each card costs different? So this one costs 6, 5, 8, 5, 5, 5. So 3 versions of this card, 4 versions of this card cost 5, and 2 versions of this card cost 8. Interesting. Either way, sacrifice land, you gain 2 life. Again, you need to pay something in order to gain something. Sacrifice a creature, again, pay something to gain something. Discard a card, search for a library, blah blah blah. Yeah, the same. Complete word. Oh no, wait a minute. Card that shares a complete word in its name with the name of the discarded card, reveal it, put it in your hand. Yeah, we already established something similar. Again, as I said before, Unstable, such as the previous set, were a little bit faster because most of the things for these sets kind of already established in the previous sets, and we're going to go through them a little bit faster, which is actually completely awesome because I kind of a little bit tired to go through these weird stats, especially considering the fact that these type of abilities not necessarily last strike. Yeah, this type of ability is not necessarily something that we could use in the actual Magic, but again, I'm studying Magic not only to understand Magic better and play Magic better, but for the sake of creating my own tabletop games in the future, as I mentioned it a million times. I'm going to repeat myself on that a lot because again, it's not necessarily clear what I'm doing this for others, I guess, and I will need to clarify that for a long time. At least to me it's clear why I'm doing it, which is completely fine, but again, it's not maybe that clear for others. So, less strike. This creature deals combat damage after creatures without less strike. Okay, this is interesting. It's probably why we didn't establish less strike before. So let's just find our first strike. So yeah, we have first strike, we have double strike, we have triple strike, but we don't have less strike. Okay, let's add less strike. This creature deals combat damage after creatures without less strike. Okay, so it's basically first strike in reverse, because first strike is basically works first and this is works last after damage is dealt. Okay, this is weird. I don't know how it could be implemented though. Yeah, it's not super clear what it could give us. This creature deals combat damage after creatures without less strike. So basically this creature loses. It makes other creatures without any first strike or less strike, whatever. Basically the regular creatures act as they have first strike. This is pretty fun. Pretty cool. So whenever you again crank this contraption, this is something that we still don't understand, or at least I don't understand. Create 2 blue fairy spy creatures token with flying, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, exile them at the beginning of the next turn. It's pretty clear. The only thing, by the way, that we didn't establish is we didn't create any ability that works permanent, not permanently, but temporary. No, I don't believe that we established something like that. So, create a card. This particular situation is creature. Use it only in this turn. Remove it from the game afterwards. Yeah, this is kind of a thing. Like, so basically, we could pay something, pay a price, pay the price, pay the price, for that price create a card. It could be an artifact, it could be a land, whatever. So basically creature, use it only in this turn and then remove it from the game afterwards. So this is kind of the thing that we didn't establish previously, which I think should be in here. Basically it kind of works like this. So again, we're creating this thing by paying certain cost on whatever certain conditions are met. Pay the price, or when certain conditions are met. Create a card. This particular situation is a creature. Use it only this turn, so we can attack with this creature. If it's a creature, we could utilize ability of this creature. This creature could add something to already existing creatures, so basically in that area. And then remove it from the game afterwards, like it didn't exist. So I think this is something that we definitely should have here. Is an important part. Again, removing from the game is exiling, but again, exile is a specific term for magic. We're going to think about like something outside of the magic, like removing from the game. When this creature enters the battlefield, roll a 6-sided die. This creature deals damage equal to the result the target creature and opponent control. Already established everything that involves roll dicing and everything that equals to the dice roll. Yeah. Destroy target creature, then assemble a contraption. Again, put the card of your contraption deck face up into one of your sprockets. Still don't get what sprockets are. Like, this is still a question to answer. Like, I don't get what it is. Destroy target artifact or enchantment, assemble a contraption, put the card again. Yeah, kind of the same, works for the contraptions, creating contraptions or assembling contraptions. Again, we have the ability to assemble construction, disassemble construction, so these type of things are kind of, if we're not going to figure out what it means, it's not that bad, because I probably will still see a couple of matches, hopefully they are there in the internet, with how these contraptions work. And maybe we'll figure out this by just basically looking at how these games are played. Because again, this is kind of one of the current sets that was released, and there's still games that people play with on Unstable, so it's definitely an interesting thing to kind of look up to. Cool end. So, Frenzy, a new ability. Whenever this creature attacks and isn't blocked, it gets +1/+1 until end of the turn. Pretty cool. Let's add that. Let's add that. Okay, it's probably going to be somewhere in here. Somewhere in here. Yeah, Frenzy X. Whenever this creature attacks and isn't blocked, it gets +X, which is the number of frenzies, until end of the turn. It's pretty fun. Okay. I definitely don't remember that I established something like that, so kinda, yeah. Garbage Elemental can't be blocked by worthy creatures. So if this card has a lot of words in it, like the flavor text and overall explanation, whatever, a creature is worthy if it has 4 or more lines of a rules text. Oh, rules text, okay. I think we already established a worthy mechanic. Let's just find it if we actually established it. Hopefully. Worthy. Something is worthy if it has 4 or more lines text in its text box. It could give us some benefits or losses. Yeah, we established that. Just go. I'm actually feeling more comfortable working with X-Mind, the regular X-Mind, not with Zen. Zen is kind of, I don't know, it's still a little bit like annoying sometimes. It's kind of a laggy. Basically, I don't feel in control when I'm using it. I don't know. Okay, and we again have different type of elementals. They're the same, but with the same art, but different abilities. Okay, So when this garbage elemental, I need to hear it again.
Elemental analysis.
No, this is not the thing that I wanted.
Elemental.
Elemental. Again, elemental analysis, elemental, yeah. Enters the battlefield, it assembles a contraption. Undying. When this creature dies, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it, return to the battlefield. And I think we already put Undying as an ability. Again, if we don't remember, it's not a problem. We always have the ability to check this out. Yep, we put Undying in here, which is cool. Continue. So Battle Cry. I actually don't remember if I put Battle Cry in there. This is pretty weird. Like, I still don't get how this card works. Like, ideally, you're not able to have more than 4 copies on one card, but these cards are completely different. Like, they with the same name. They are with the same name, but they are different. So each card does something different. And again, it's just a specific thing for this set. It's just kind of weird. Oh, there's a cascade in here. Okay, let's see if we establish Battle Cry or not. Find and replace. Pity Battle Cry in here. What? You tell me we didn't establish Battle Cry? This is preposterous. Okay, we need to establish Battle Cry. Where are our regular abilities? Okay, Echo, Metalcraft, yeah. Here they are. We will continue with Frenzy, duplicate, and let's just find the explanation for Battle Cry, which is a good thing that it has in here. So whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of the turn. I remember Battle Cry, that was a pretty interesting ability. It's a pretty cool ability. Okay. Okay. And when it enters the battlefield, roll 2 6-sided die, create a number of +1/1 red goblin creatures tokens equal to the difference between those results. Again, we already established everything that involves 2 dice rolls and the difference between them. This is one of the new abilities that they're added in Unstable set. Yeah. So Cascade, I actually don't remember if I put Cascade in. So again, let's find if we have it or not. No, it's not here. I should probably use Control F. Nope, there's no Cascade in here. Okay, let's just put it. When you cast this spell, exile card from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. Put the exiled card on the bottom of your library in random order. Okay, pretty interesting. Oh, wait a minute, I remember Cascade ability. It's a pretty old ability. Yeah, I remember. It's actually a pretty sick ability. Okay, sick in a good way. So when you cast this spell, exiled cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. So again, you play this card. If this card cost is like 5, then you reveal cards until you will reveal the card with that costs less, and then you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So basically, this is actually awesome ability. I remember it. Sick ability. And again, when it enters the battlefield, roll 6-sided die and deal damage equal to the result to target opponent. Again, we already established that. Unleash. I think we already put Unleash in here. So again, we already put Let's Strike Battalion. Whenever Garbage Elemental and at least 2 other creatures attack, target creature can't block this turn. Okay, new ability Battalion. But let's first seek Unleash. Hopefully we're going to find it. No Unleash in here. Okay, I'm pissed off. Apparently, I turned off the microphone somewhere 20 minutes ago, and I forgot to turn it off. Turn it on. Turn off the microphone. Yeah, I forgot to turn it on back, and damn it, the last 20 minutes before the break were me blah blah blahing without actual visuals, without sound, which was snap. Hate when these things are happened and no one is to tell that things are not working. This is frustrating. Okay, we'll continue. So, okay. So I need to constantly check microphone, like every time, because this is something that kind of could be super annoying, and especially the fact that I'm kind of creating a potential like content that is going to be like put on a like next as a video on YouTube and etc. Yeah, like I would want the thing to work fine, but apparently not every time things are going to work. So yeah, let's just continue. So again, we established thing with menace, we established thing with art thing, and let's continue. So whatever you crank these goblin creatures you get, yeah, we already established that. So all graveyards are also your graveyards. Oh, this is actually pretty interesting. These type of abilities are could be pretty interesting, I'd say. So the thing about this is kind of allows us to all area graveyards. It could be hands, libraries, decks are also your graveyards, hands, and decks. It could be an interesting ability to explore. Like when it comes down to graveyards, it's pretty clear why it works like that. But when it comes down to hands and decks, it could be much stranger, I'd say. Like the strange thing about it is, if we will have the ability to play with the player's hands and basically take control of the player's hand, I think it needs to have some ground rules, because it's kind of weird. If taking control of a certain area creates an in-game conflict, which in this particular instance it creates a in-game conflict. If taking control of a certain area creates an in-game conflict, create a balance. Balance could be anything, but for instance, if we're talking about hands and decks, decks actually a little bit more understandable, but we could like create a balance like until end of the turn, or until player will use its library for the first time, or whatever. So basically something like that, or like you controlling the player's hand until player decides to play some spell. Of course, player need to remember what cards are there, or unless player will name all cards that he or she had, then that way they could go back. So this is kind of interesting. Like balance could be anything. Continue. So power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards with flavor text in your graveyards. Again, we're not necessarily established something like that, like the creatures that power and toughness of each equal to something. I don't remember at least something like that, so let's just create this ability because it's a pretty important thing to have. So cards in this particular instance creature power and toughness, are each equal to the number of, and it could be anything. Cards certain abilities or, yeah, let's just call it just ability or mechanics. Cards with certain abilities or mechanics, cards power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards with a certain abilities or mechanics. Number of cards in a certain area, which could be a graveyard and a battlefield and whatever in your hand. So basically this is the ability that involves the power and toughness each need to be equal to some type of in-game status or statistics, whatever, or visual appeal. Continue. Yeah. Roll a 6-sided die. This one gets +6/+6 until end of the turn, where X is the results. Again, we already put that one. Whenever you roll a 5 or higher on a die, this one gains trample until end of the turn. Again, we already established that if a certain die is rolled, cards could get something, so kind of skipping. Legendary creature, zombie villain. Villain? It's not villain. Yeah?
Villain.
It's actually a villain. So, combined, enchanted, and equipped creatures you control have menace. Did we establish combined ability? I think we are, but we need to find it still. No? Huh. No combined. So you tell me the server is still down to maintenance issues? Seriously? How many weeks it needs to be? It needs to already be kinda open. I think it's just the... like, if we will go through a simple search, it works. If we will go through advanced search, it works. So apparently it was just a page out of order, but things are still working. Cool. So we could actually continue to search with this one. So let's try. So combined text search. Whoa, this is a card. Stat-based action don't apply to you or other permanents you control. You don't lose the game due to having 0 or less life or drawing from an empty library. Your creatures aren't destroyed due to damage or death touch and aren't put into a graveyard due to oh snap, this is cruel. We definitely need to put that one. I think it's somewhere along the way in unstable, but let's just put it here right now. For complete rules and regulations, read rules. Yeah, since permanents you control attached to combined illegally remain on the battlefield. Okay, let's just try to find combine, just combine. not combined. Oh, hello there, augment. For a card with an augment and combine it with the host. Oh, so basically, combinability is the ability to combine basically augment and host. Okay, that means we probably should add that into our hosts and augment thing, which is, by the way, somewhere in here. We need to find it. In-game action, roll the dice. Yeah, here it is, host augment. So equals combinability or combined cards. Cool. If you search a library this way, shuffle it. So enchanted, we already established what enchanted creatures are, but we but we actually didn't necessarily establish that. The target's creature from a garden into the battlefield combined into one creature under your control. Total toughness, total power, again it's kind of works fine. Oh, here they are. These are the augment cards. Finally, we're starting to get those. Cool. So basically, augment, pay X, reveal this card from your hand. No, let's just pay X, reveal this card from your hand, combine it with target host. Augment only as a sorcery. Finally. And the host cards are just cards that are on the battlefield, so they're not giving... So yeah, the host card is just a card that's right on the battlefield, and I think it will give us something only after, like, this ability is going to be triggered only after it's will be combined. So unless it will be combined, no, actually when this creature enters the battlefield, 1/1 colorless numb, maybe it's going to re-trigger it multiple times. Oh no, when this creature, it means when this creature enters the battlefield, when combined, when the augment attaches itself to a host, activate host's ability. Oh snap, this is actually definitely the thing that we need to put in here. If a augment creature attaches it, let's just call it itself, to a host, activate, no, trigger to a host, host ability is triggered. So this is kind of the way how they work. Finally, combined cards. So if an augment creature attaches itself to a host, so basically they will combine, host ability is triggered. Good. Now it's finally clear. Again, when this creature enters the battlefield, whatever host will attach to it we could create a gnome, but right here is specification that it needs to be an artifact. So if we will attach not an artifact, it's not going to work probably. They will just combine. And when they combine, this creature, the host creature, will get pluses from the augment card. The creature type, and yeah, this is actually the thing that we need to specify, because it's pretty important stuff. So host will get plus X toughness. Let's just call it attack and defense. Of an augment card. And also its card and creature type. This is kind of important. Yeah, host will get plus X attack and plus X defense of an augment creature, and also its card. Its cards and creatures type. Good. So now we finally know what augment is and how it works, which is pretty cool. Whenever you dealt damage, augment. Oh, wait a minute. So augment activated by a certain in-game action. Interesting. Is you able to augment only if certain in-game action is performed. Or not. So, either free, as it is, or if certain action is performed. It's kind of a thing. So, in this particular instance, we kind of have the ability to choose that, which is pretty cool. Okay. Minor creature. Content. Continue. So, we have about 30 minutes or so till the MTG switch, until we're going to switch, but we will see how the session is going to go. Maybe we're not going to switch and we actually will study a little bit longer. We'll see that. So again, at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent was dealt damage this turn, augment again. Again, at the beginning of your upkeep, if certain conditions are met, when a non-token creature enters the battlefield, augment. Gain control of target creature until end of the turn, and tap that creature and roll a 6-sided die. I think we already established everything that works with the gaining of control, but in case we didn't, let's try to find it. Shalat! Muhun! Sorry about that. Oh. I forget to turn off microphone. One of the reasons like why it's better not to, because then I will forget to turn it on. One stupid and annoying moment is better than 20 minutes of silence or whatever. So yeah, based on certain the most in-game merits, life, you gain control of a specific card. Or you just getting control of a specific card. How many of those we have, by the way? Do we have a regular gain control? Gain control permanently. Tap in your card, accept land results in losing control of that card. Oh, no, I don't want to replace. Yeah, we kind of find everything that involves control. That means we don't have anything that works with the control. Let's add that. Basically, the ability to gain control of a target creature until end of the turn. I think this is pretty important stuff that needs to be in here. Yeah, it actually could be activated by anything. Continue. So as this hammer of hammers, of jammers, enters the battlefield, roll a 6-sided die. Hammer enters the battlefield with a number +1/+1 counters on it equals to the result. Whenever you roll a die, remove all +1/+1 counters from that card, then put number +1/+1 counter on it equal to the result. This is actually pretty interesting, but it's just a way to combine multiple abilities with dice rolling. So we're not only adding something with a dice roll, but we actually are losing something with a dice roll and reapplying these things back. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Pretty awesome card, but we're not going to put it as a separate ability because we don't have to. So whenever you cast a spell with a goblin watermark, so this watermark, Explosioneers, this one deals 2 damage to a target creature or player. Again, we already established the things that work with the watermark, so we're not going to put it anymore. So, create a 2/2 colorless homunculus creature token. It must be represented by a unique hand and 2 fingers at all times, or it ceases to exist. What? Okay, so again, in order to keep this colorless homunculus inside the game, we need to unique hand and 2 fingers at all times. So it kind of makes the opponent to do something constantly, like perform out of the game action on a constant basis in order to this to be in play. Early testing failed because the clones were all thumbs. Unique hand and 2 fingers at all times. So basically it's based on appearance of the player, so we're not going to put that one, but it's pretty interesting. So as this one enters the battlefield, secretly note a word with a 6 or a 2/8 letters. Target player who doesn't control hangman guesses the noted word or an unguessed letter in that word. If he or she guesses wrong, put +1/+1 counter on this hangsman. And when a player guesses the noted word or all of its letters, sacrifice it. So we can already establish things that work with guesses, so we're not going to do that. But again, it's just the different combinations of already existing abilities. And we're going to have a lot of those in the future. Like, again, since we almost established all basics, The rest is just the different variations of these basics, and because of that I'm not going to put these ones in actual things, unless we'll find something that, again, it's not clear and I'm not seeing something that we already established. Whenever you crank this card, still we don't know what it means. Again, it's kind of, or either tilt this card or make it a little bit, I don't know, like, still don't know. Roll 2 6-sided dice. By the way, since this is a mythic, we could actually have a text for it with the rulings. So contraptions are artifacts. Anything that interacts with artifacts will interact with contraptions. Contraptions aren't put into your main deck. They go into a separate deck called a contraption deck. Okay, let's just put this one as a ruling. I think it's important. First, let's just find contraptions. We actually don't know what they are or they are. Contraptions. I think they're somewhere at the beginning of Unstable. Here they are. So yeah, contraption abilities triggered in an yeah, copying didn't work. Yeah, contraptions put into your, not into your own main deck, but a separate deck called contraption deck. Okay, let's see what else we could establish. In constructed formats, a contraption deck must have at least 15 different contraption cards and no more than one of each. Okay, this is interesting information, didn't know that. I know that these are just basic rulings, but these rulings will help us to understand what contraptions are, how to work with them, and maybe it will answer the questions what crank means and what sprockets are. So, in limited formats, contraption decks may include any number of contraption cards in your card pool. You don't have to include every contraption card you draft or open in sealed decks. It doesn't matter for now. In silver boarded games using contraptions, you have 3 sprockets. Okay, this is interesting. Instructed on the back of contraption cards. At the start of the game, put a crank counter on a sprocket 3. The contraption deck is not, even if you're using it to signify the 3 sprockets. What? If you or permanents you control are instructed to assemble a contraption, reveal the top card of your contraption deck, put it onto the battlefield on one of the 3 sprockets. So basically 3 sprockets, this is the maximum. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control any contraptions, move the crank counter on the next sprocket. You may then crank any number of contraptions on that sprocket, causing their abilities to trigger. Oh snap, this is complex. Yeah, I guess we need to put all these rules in here. This kind of will answer. You have 3 sprockets illustrated on the back of contraption cards. At the start of the game, put a crank counter on a sprocket 3. Contraption is always optional. Oh, cranking a construction is always optional, so you could put that or not. You may or you may not. Oh, wait a minute. Where is the optional thing? Okay, silver-boarded game. Using construction, you have 3 sprockets illustrated on the back of the... Okay, next. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control any constructions, move a crank counter to the next sprocket. So basically there's 3 sprockets, and first crank counter appears on the 3rd one, and then they moving into the next one, like to the 2nd one, to the 1st one, and the different order. You may then crank any number of contraptions on that sprocket. Oh, I'm kind of starting to figure this out. So we have 3 sprockets, so like the 3 different decks that we're going to put contraptions in. These contraptions, if we have like, the only thing that we need to figure out how these... Okay, if you crank multiple constructions in one spring, their abilities can be put into the stack in any order. The ability onto the stack will resolve first. It's clear. If contraption would leave the battlefield and go into any zone other than exile, it instead goes to the scrapyard. Okay, we can establish what scrapyard is. The construction deck's version of a graveyard. Yep. Contraption's graveyard. Things that affect the graveyard do not affect the scrapyard. You can exile contraptions just fine. Okay. If you or your permanent or permanent you control assembles a construction and your contraption deck is empty, nothing happens. You don't lose the game. I guess it's clear. Any contraption that's on the battlefield and wasn't assembled immediately heads to the scrapyard. However, if it's not an actual contraption card, like copy artifact isn't, it goes to a graveyard as normal. Non-contraption cards can't be in the scrapyard. Yeah, again, like, if we're going to think what contraptions are, it's just a out of the game, like the special deck that allows us to play with 3 sprockets, and by putting these contraptions into these 3 separate sprockets and moving crank counters between them, we able to utilize their abilities. This is kind of it. So nothing super mega special about it. Like, it's pretty cool, but again, it's not something that like out of the mind. It's just like adding an additional deck to your basic library, to your original library, that you could play with. And I actually, like, the couple of games that I created, actually using the same amount. Like, again, it's kind of the same as create a 3rd deck for each player. Like, each player has its own deck, but creating a 3rd in between deck for a player. But when it comes down to contraptions, it kind of works just for you, I guess. So every player basically able to add additional deck. The contraption deck must have at least 15 different contraption cards and no more than 1 of each. Yeah, we're going to think about constructed formats. I'm not going to talk about limited formats for the most part, because constructed is kind of the one format that I'm interested in for the most part, because it allows us to build whatever we want. So include every contraption card you draft. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So yeah, in silver-boarded games. So basically this is the answer what crank counter is. So we have 3 sprockets, and these, every time that we're creating a contraption, we able to put it in one of the sprockets. So we're kind of choosing that. So reassemble target contraption you control, move it into another one of your sprockets. So basically, put the top card of your contraption deck face up onto one of your sprockets, so one of the three. So there's the three sprockets, and in one of those sprockets we able to put this contraption. We're also able to reassemble contraption by changing, putting it into another sprocket, and this basically the sprocket on which crank counter is present activates the constructions inside of this sprocket. Yes, so I finally figured it out what it means. Like, come on, this is a pretty weird thing. Like, it's kind of could be an interesting thing. Once you kind of understand how it works, it becomes simple. But at the beginning I thought, oh come on, this is super complex, I don't know how to work with it. So let's just reread everything that we established and try to come up with something that could basically provide us with like, do I have all information that we need, or we need to add something new? So contraptions aren't put into your main deck, they go into a separate deck called contraption deck. Yeah, this is, I guess, important information. Also, add to this information, we have a separate scrapyard for a contraption, for the contraptions, which is basically the version of the contraption graveyard. In constructed formats, a construction deck must have at least 15 different contraptions. So basically, it's just the specifications. We're not going to like talk about it as something like super clear. I think in the future we could use it to change our own rules. So if we will create some type of deck like a contraption deck, we could just basically put some limitations on the number of cards that we're going to put in this deck. So it's just a way to understand that there need to be certain limitations. Move the card counter to your contraptions deck's next sprocket and crank any number of that sprocket's contraptions. So that means that we're able to activate multiple contraptions in one sprocket, which is clear. In silver boarded games, using contraptions, just put this one on top, it's kind of an important thing. You have three sprockets illustrated on the back of the contraption cards. At the start of the game, put a crank counter on sprocket 3. So basically you will start with putting a crank counter on 1 and you can utilize it. But if you're not, they go into a graveyard. So like, this is weird. I still don't get the whole like mechanic how it works. So while contraption you control are on the battlefield, the contraption deck is not. Even if you are using it to signify the three sprockets. This is actually an important information. Okay. If you or a permanent you control are instructed to assemble a contraption, reveal the top card of your contraption deck, put it in the battlefield on one of three sprockets. Okay, we already kind of established that, so I guess we don't have to do that again. On one of your sprockets, yeah. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control any contraptions, move the crank counter to the next sprocket. You may then crank any number of contraptions on that sprocket, causing their abilities to trigger. Cranking a contraption is always optional. Okay, we don't need to put that one. Oh no, we already create that one. Okay. So again, basically we have 3 sprockets. If we crank multiple contraptions, their abilities can be put onto a stack. Okay, it's clear, we're not going to establish that. If contraptions would leave the battlefield and go to any zone, yeah, we're not going to put that one either. If you are permanent, you control assembles a contraption and your contraption deck is empty, nothing happens. Clear. Any contraption that's on a battlefield and wasn't assembled immediately. Okay, well, this is kind of an interesting. So this is definitely what we'll put as a specification, because this is kind of one of the problems with this one. So any contraption that's on the battlefield and wasn't assembled immediately heads to the scrapyard. However, if it's an actual contraption card, like a copy of an artifact, it goes to a graveyard as normal. Okay, but why we would need to create these 3 scraps if we can activate only one of them, and if other cards are not going to be assembled, they're just going to head into a graveyard? Like, I don't get that. I guess this is the thing to figure out for later, because like the overall idea of the contraption decks I understand. I don't understand like the certain specifics of it, which is completely fine, because again, we don't have to like understand it fully at this particular point. As long as we have this basic information, then the more experience I'll get, like the better I will put this information together and figure it out the way to control this. But again, as I said, like the general thing that we need to like extract from it is it just basically creates a different deck, the ability to utilize a different deck, and this deck basically works with different sub decks, I would say, and these sub decks, which are the sprockets, and at the beginning of each turn of your turn, basically correct counters moves between these 3 sub decks, and whatever this counter is present, it will allows you to activate the abilities of those constructions that are in that deck, sub deck, sprockets. This is kind of the way it works, but the specifics like this, it kind of makes me confused, like just basically confuses me. Like any contraption that's on the battlefield and wasn't assembled immediately heads to the scrapyard. What? Like, that means that why would we need to put then 3 sprockets? Like, ugh. Yeah, so basically this is kind of a problem that I'm having. Maybe if I will translate what scraps are. No, there's no help there. Either way, so basically, whenever you crank this contraption, you roll into 6-sided die, and this card basically assembles a number of contraptions equal to the difference between those results. To assemble a contraption, put the top card of your contraption deck face up into one of your sprockets, which is pretty cool. Continue. So yeah, basically we can already almost finish. We'll finish after like 2 cards. Yeah, the next page we will start from the next session. So 3 cards left. So enchanted creature gets +2/+1 and has menace. Whenever whenever player's skin or fingernails touches enchanted creature, that player loses 2 lives. Again, it involves the interaction of the player with the cards, which we already established at the beginning. Whenever you crank this contraption, target creature must be blocked this turn if able. Okay, clear. And hoisted hireling. Let's just figure it out.
Hoisted hireling.
Has flying as long as it's being held above the battlefield. Kind of interesting. So basically, you need to
hold it in your hand and basically above the battlefield, and that way it has flying. This is actually pretty interesting. Yeah, we could do that. Let's just create a separate ability for that. Put this one as a specification to know what this card is all about, and try to come up with the overall explanation or general explanation for it. So let's try. Hosted hurling is flying as long as it's being held above the battlefield. So cards physical abilities such as flying, I don't know, vigilance, flying, vigilance, first strike, double strike, and etc. are present or active only if you physically perform them. With these cards. I think this is kind of it. Yeah, it's just so cards physical abilities such as flying, vigilance, first strike, double strike, and etc. are present or active only if you physically perform them with these cards. So this is kind of it. So it means, again, if we want for this card to fly, we need to hold this card like in basically above the battlefield. That way it's going to fly. If we're talking about vigilance, we have to hold this card and not rotate it. So basically we need to attack with this card exactly the way that she, which is kind of cheaty, but still. The same could go for flying, actually. For the first strike, we just need to, when we're attacking, we need to actually take a first strike before opponent will do that. That way will work. The same goes for double strike, which is just double thing. We could, like every physical based abilities that Magic has, we could basically, then we will analyze what type of abilities are going to be physical abilities, what not. So, and this will actually help us to kind of figure out how these things work. From page, not that many of those. For the most part, the ones that involves the physical action in them, or the physical changes for the card, or something that involves the action that physically person could kind of repeat. So yeah, on that note, I guess we will go on a break, and after a break we will be back and we will continue with Magic Duels. So yeah, we kind of finished with the first page. There's a second page next. The second page is going to be from a hotfix, so we will start from the hotfix. Most of them we will probably skip, as I already said. Like, this is the nature of studying so far going to be, because for the most part everything we're going to do, it's already, for the most part, the basics for it is already established, and because of this we don't need to kind of put all specifics that we we will encounter into our mind map, because most of the basic abilities are already there. So yeah, let's just switch to Magic Duels after this after this break, and after a break we'll continue. So yeah, let's just go on a break, and hope that I will not forget to turn on the microphone back. So that's going to be the thing.